On October 15, 1987, in the capital of Burkina Faso, a revolution reached its violent end. Inside the Council des Intendants, Thomas Sankara sat with his closest allies, unaware that within minutes, everything would collapse. Gunfire suddenly erupted outside. His guards were cut down. Panic filled the room. Then, Sankara did something that has been widely remembered. He stood up calmly and told his comrades to stay inside. According to several accounts, he stepped out to face the attackers. He was immediately shot. At just 37 years old, one of Africa's most radical leaders was gone. But here is the real question. Why was Thomas Sankara killed? In this video, you will understand not just how he died, but the deeper forces that made his position increasingly dangerous. You will see how internal power struggles, ideological conflicts, and possible external pressure all converged to bring down a revolution that challenged the status quo, and by the end, you will understand why his story still matters today. To understand his death, we have to go back to the very beginning. Sankara was born on December 21st, 1949, in Yako, in what was then Upper Volta. He grew up during the final years of French colonial rule, a system that continued to influence the country even after independence in 1960. As a student, he was disciplined and intellectually curious. He excelled academically, but instead of joining the clergy, as some people expected, he chose a military career. That decision would shape everything that followed. At the military academy, Sankara was exposed not just to combat training, but to political ideas. Influenced by instructors and global events, he began to develop a critical view of colonialism, inequality, and governance in Africa. He started asking difficult questions. Why were African nations politically independent but economically dependent? Why did leadership often serve elites rather than the people? These ideas would define his future. By the early 1980s, Upper Volta was politically unstable. Governments rose and fell through coups. Corruption was widespread. Public trust was very low. It was in this environment that Sankara rose to prominence. In 1983, at just 33 years old, he became president following a coup led by his close ally, Blaise Compaore. Together, they presented themselves as revolutionaries committed to transforming the country. And Sankara moved quickly. One of his first symbolic acts was renaming the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, meaning land of the upright people. This was more than a name change. It signaled a break from the past and a new national identity. But symbolism was only the beginning. Sankara introduced sweeping reforms aimed at restructuring society. He reduced his own salary and rejected luxury benefits typically associated with political office. He sold off government fleets of expensive cars and encouraged modest living among officials. These actions were designed to set an example. At the same time, his government launched large-scale development programs. Historians generally agree that one of his most significant achievements was a nationwide vaccination campaign. In a matter of weeks, millions of children were immunized against diseases like measles and meningitis, dramatically improving public health outcomes. He also invested in education, healthcare infrastructure, and agricultural developments. Food production increased, and there was a strong emphasis on self-sufficiency. Sankara placed particular importance on women's rights. He spoke openly against forced marriages and harmful traditional practices, and his government introduced policies aimed at improving the status of women in society. Environmental protection was another priority. His administration led campaigns to plant millions of trees in response to desertification, a major threat in the region. For many citizens, this was a period of visible progress. However, while these reforms gained support among ordinary people, they also created resistance. Sankara's policies challenged established interests within Burkina Faso. Some traditional leaders felt sidelined. Members of the political and administrative elite who had previously benefited from the system found themselves losing influence. At the same time, his stance on international relations raised concerns beyond the country's borders. He openly criticized foreign influence in Africa, particularly from former colonial powers such as France. He was also skeptical of international financial institutions and the conditions attached to foreign aid. There is strong evidence that Sankara aimed to reduce dependency and promote economic independence. While his position made him popular among many Africans, it also made his government uncomfortable for external actors who preferred stability over radical change. At the center of the unfolding tension was his relationship with Blaise Compaore. In the early years, they were close allies. They shared power and appeared united in their revolutionary vision. But over time, differences began to emerge. Compaore built his own network of influence within within the military and political system. Meanwhile, Sankara continued to push forward with reforms that disrupted existing power structures. Historians generally agree that by 1987, tensions within the leadership had escalated significantly. There are also persistent allegations that external actors may have supported opposition to Sankara, including figures linked to neighboring countries such as Côte d'Ivoire and its then president, Felix Compaore. However, the full extent of foreign involvement remains debated, and I cannot confirm the exact level of coordination. What is clear is that Sankara was facing increasing pressure from multiple directions. By October 1987, the situation had become highly unstable. On the afternoon of October 15, Sankara attended a meeting at the Conseil des Ententes. Shortly after it began, armed commandos launched an attack on the compound. The attack was swift. Sankara's security detail was quickly overwhelmed. According to widely reported accounts, Sankara chose to step outside and confront the attackers. He was shot almost immediately. He died that day. In 2022, a Burkina court convicted Blaise Compaore in absentia for his role in the assassination. While he has denied responsibility, this ruling represents a significant legal conclusion based on available evidence. Following the coup, Compaore took power and stated that his actions were intended to correct the revolution. However, in the years that followed, many of Sankara's policies were reversed and the political system shifted away from his revolutionary model. Burkina Faso's governance changed direction and new alliances were formed internationally. So, what was the real reason Thomas Sankara was killed? There is no single answer. His assassination can be understood as the result of intersecting factors. Internally, his reforms disrupted powerful interests and created opposition among elites. Politically, divisions within his own leadership weakened his position. Externally, his stance against foreign influence may have contributed to tensions with international actors, although the full extent of this influence remains uncertain. Taken together, these pressures made his position increasingly difficult to sustain. Sankara represented a model of leadership that changed domestic and international systems of power, and in doing so, he became a target. But even after his death, his ideas did not disappear. Across Africa and beyond, he is still remembered as a leader who attempted to redefine governance, accountability, and independence. His speeches continues to be studied. His policies are still debated, and for many, he remains a symbol of what leadership could look like under different conditions. So, what are the lessons from this story? First, meaningful reform often creates resistance. When systems are deeply entrenched, attempts to change them can provoke strong opposition from those who benefit from the status quo. Secondly, the political alliance can shift quickly. Relationships that begin in unity can evolve into rivalry when power, influence, and ideology diverge. Thirdly, leadership that challenges both internal and external structures faces a unique set of risks. Balancing reforms with stability is one of the most difficult tasks in governance. Finally, ideas have lasting power. Even when individuals are removed from power, the principles they represent can continue to influence future generations. Thomas Sankara's life was brief, but his impact remains significant. If you found this story valuable, there are more in-depth documentaries on this channel covering history, people, and events that shaped the world. Watch the next video and follow for more stories that matter. Thank you.